started. Please welcome Trudy Dunham, Paul Hill, Gerald Thomas, and Peter Warren, talking about expanding potential reach and impact of citizen science.
Okay, thank you. I'm Jerry Thomas. There's four of us. There's three of us here and four of us giving this presentation. So Paul Hill from Utah State will be joining us virtually here in just a little bit, and we'll see how that all works out. It looks like it's going to work pretty well. We're going to talk about citizen science. How many people here are familiar with citizen science? It's about half. Well, hopefully by the time you leave here, you'll be more familiar with it. This is really 3 sessions. So there's 3 20-minute sessions, and you can come and go in any one of them as you see fit or as you want to. But we're going to do a little intro here in a second, just kind of define citizen science, give you an idea of what it is. Then we're also going to talk today, or this session, about the public value of citizen science. And Trudy's going to talk about that. And we'll introduce ourselves as we come up. As you know, maybe you don't know, I'm Jerry Thomas with Ohio State University Extension. And then in part 2, after the break, we're going to talk about examples. So up here, we're going to talk about public value and defining it. Then in the second part, here's some examples of it. Here's some ways we're using it in extension as well. The part 3 is really whoever's here in the audience. It's your heavy lifting turn with us helping you, because we want to get feedback and ideas on how we can move citizen science ahead, because we think it's a great opportunity for the cooperative extension system and a way we can really stretch our impact as well. In an era where we have less and less resources, we tend to use more volunteer resources, for example, master gardeners, master naturalists, and this is yet another way we can start to do that. So what is citizen science? Here's some words on the screen, and you can kind of soak them in. It's both youth and adults. You're going to see more youth examples probably here today, because we've done them in conjunction with STEM and other related processes with youth. But it's helping scientists or extension professionals, researchers, all the way through the planning, coordinating, collecting, conducting of research and other information, sometimes even evaluating the research as well. And so, this message is popping up here. And so, anyway, excuse me. And this has really been growing recently within the university and other places as a way to leverage limited amounts of money. And so you'll see examples, and we'll talk more about examples but it's letting folks collect information out of the field. It's using some crowdsourcing with computers and other things. And so it does rely on individuals, the internet, mobile applications, science skills, and other tools to provide crowdsourced results. So there's a starting point, and I think once we start talking about it and you see some of the examples, it'll make it even clearer. Any questions before we move on? These 20-minute sessions are like a big rush. You just have to get through them. So, okay, well, I'm going to introduce Trudy, who will come up next, and Trudy will say a few things about herself, and we'll talk to you about public value. So, Trudy?
Thank you. Can you hear me? I'm Trudy Dunham with University of Minnesota Extension Center for Youth Development. I've been working on citizen science through some work we did in CypherNet over the past year, and part of the STEM in 4-H. And really thinking about how to move this forward. And as we think about it, I sort of broken it out here. I wanted to talk about public value. You'll hear a lot more about the actual programs, but it's like, why should we care? Why should we be doing this? And the first reason is around youth and adult development. We live in a world where part of our work is 4-H, where we do youth development, where we prepare youth to go to college, get a job, live in their community. But it's also a world where increasingly adults need to keep rebuilding their skill sets. There's so much change going around, the jobs are changing, and citizen science provides a way to do that. What it does is it provides you an opportunity to work on a team, to collaborate, to use technologies and tools. A lot of the citizen science projects are internet-based, and they're using some interesting different monitoring tools, measurement tools, that can really provide some new skills. And it provides an opportunity, even if it's not a job-based, you could call it an internship or something like that, which would look nice on people's resumes. So we're really building skills that youth and adults need to prepare them for the 21st century. The second point is around authentic learning. And some of you may be familiar with this term. And there's a paper that's going around that's a little bit on some of the work, the research we've been doing in Minnesota on the Driven to Discover project that talks about a grounded theory behind this. And I'm not going to go into that, but you're welcome to look at that. But one of the key points in that research is around authentic learning, but it's also key to all citizen science. And what it means are two things. One, it's a real science process. They are doing this work of scientists. They are out there helping develop the questions, to collect the data, to do the data analysis, just as scientists would do. And so they're learning the process. And that's very important for them to understand what science is and what our work in extension is. And the second piece around authentic learning is that it's a real issue. It's a real problem. It's not some made-up example, you know, that I'm doing something, a poster session for the state fair or something like that. But it's a real issue. It's a real problem that has implications for the family, for the community, for society at large. So it's important in a way that something that's just sort of a make-work project is not as important. And the third area is citizen engagement. I'm sure we've all heard a lot in the last couple of years about social media and people deciding for themselves their opinions. We've heard about citizen journalism and citizens in their community reporting the news. Well, some people are also deciding what the science says or what the experts say. Citizen engagement and looking at actual involvement in citizen science projects is a way for us to really get adults and youth involved in participating. They're not just consuming, they're not just reading about the science, the work you do in a paper, a newsletter, but they're actually part of making that science. And when you participate in something, when you're a part of the team that's doing it, it really changes how you relate to it. It changes your understanding of what science is. It enables you to understand what it means for a scientist to draw a conclusion. It's not just an opinion. It's something that they developed a consensus through peer review and discussion and negotiation. That whole argumentation phase of science is key for how we create new knowledge. And it's key for youth and adults to be part of that process, to understand it, so they can recognize what's the difference between Trudy's opinion that I post on Facebook about something versus the result of a scientific study. And related to that, then, is also how they see the value of extension itself, because we do that science work. And so when we look at public value, and public value is a term used to what's the benefit of this to someone who is not in the program itself. So what's the benefit to society at large? One of the things we know is that when we become involved in something, we're all part of a network. We don't exist as an individual. We talk with our family, with our friends about what we're doing. We share this with them. And so when we engage an individual, what we're actually doing is engaging a network. If you think about some of the principles around social media, information spreads between people the same way it spreads in social media. So we're creating public value. And we're looking at the role of the citizen science then in really understanding what our work is and then sharing that with people that they know and work with. And also sharing it with decision makers in their community. So how can extension enhance our state and local value? Part of it, again, is they develop the skill sets with youth and adults so that they benefit the community. If I can get a better job because of what I learned through my citizen science project, I can bring more income in the community. If I can, in Minnesota, we do monarch butterflies. That's one of our big citizen science projects. If I can make my community a better place for monarch butterflies to live, I can improve the quality of honey, maybe, and some other things, and flowers and different resources in our community. I can ensure the existence of a species. There are all sorts of ways that really the extension can enhance our value. Does that make sense? And youth and adults, they can be a very strong advocate for extension in the community. They can talk to your county commissioners. If those of you know who have to always go to the legislature for money and go to the county for money, if you have a member of the community speaking out for your work, for the impact of your work, for the quality of the work, for the importance of doing this science and this outreach in the community, it's going to make quite a difference. If they can talk about how they were involved in a way that built their skill set and how they got to feel a part of this particular process. There's a new catchphrase going around in the citizen science community that says, no more research about us without us. And so they really have engaged and found ownership in a lot of these projects. And they speak to that when they talk to decision makers, which really enhances our value in the community as well. Any further questions about that? I was fast, yes.
You say that you're focusing more on your youth programs, citizen science projects and things, so adult citizen science.
The question is, do we have a lot of adult citizen science? One of the problems is I work with youth development, and so that's why I speak about youth. And Paul, one of our speakers, also speaks about youth. There are tons of examples of citizen science projects out there that do work with adults. And we'll talk more about those in the next section. But it would be very easy to involve. I mean, if you think of some of the, like our climatologist does weather reporting from people's backyards, that's an example of data collection that's often done by adults, by farmers, etc. Yes, sir. Oh.
I just added here. And it exists.
I wanted to work with The question was, is there any guidance for avoiding the tangles of IRB when you work with youth? Because there is a whole layer of complexity that comes up.
I don't have any real strategies for that. But I will say that in the next session, when Paul comes on from Utah, perhaps he'll have some advice for us. But what happens with a lot of these projects is that they are done as, quote, community service rather than as research. They're done as part of the 4-H program rather than as research. We are not collecting data, usually on the kids themselves. We're not asking them anything. And so from that perspective, I think most people don't see it as following under the purview of IRB. Has anyone had a different experience? I think we only get into trouble when we ask youth to provide data on themselves. But otherwise, I think if you wanted to run it through your IRB, as long as you weren't, I don't know, sending the kids into swamps with man-eating crocodiles, something that would really endanger them, I think it would be a snap to do it. But one of the pieces we really want to think about as we move forward is how can we use this to better engage our citizens in the work that Extension does? How can we use this to sort of change some of the impressions people may have that, oh, universities do research that doesn't have any meaning or impact for me, and really provide opportunities for them to be participants in that process. We live in an age where people used to be consumers, but today they really want to be participants, and how can we better engage them in this? Thank you. Jerry?
Okay, thank you. We're going to start wrapping up. We have 5 minutes left to go. I made a mistake at the beginning. Most of you, if you looked at the program, saw Lorianne Barnett's name. And I should have mentioned at the beginning, because I'm obviously not Lorianne. And Lorianne had a slight injury and was unable to come. She's fine and everything. So Peter is the new Lorianne in the back here. So you can wave Peter. You'll hear from Peter here in just a little bit. One of the interesting things as I was listening to the conversation, and maybe a way to help you with citizen science, we're going to give a bunch of examples in the next session, but just 2 in case you can't make it to it, that may be useful to give right here. One's an OSU, but it's not an extension one. Our OSU, School of Natural Resources, has been tracking bald eagle migration in Ohio. And it's a big topic for them. And the only way they have the resources to do that is to work with Audubon and bird watchers. And so the bird watchers just record it. So when they see a bald eagle, and so what you do over time, because bald eagles are water-based, and they started up by Great Lake Erie, and have been migrating south. And so over time, you can start seeing like a dots on a map, their expansion through. So that's one great way of leveraging citizen science. The other one that's an example that's not related to OSU that comes out of geography has to do with climate change. Does anyone here play hockey or like hockey? Terry, I know, does. We're the only 2. We talk the Minnesota person, yeah. And so, well, when I grew up, we always played hockey outside on a pond. And what we're finding is the ability to play hockey outside on ponds are changing with climate change. And so these geographers got together and thought one easy way that we could expand our reach and collect this is develop an app, promote it with kids. And so what they can do now is, I think the way it works is that if the ice is solid enough to skate on, they click it. And over time, with enough people in enough geographies, you start getting patterns to do that. So those are 2 examples of using citizen science to do that. One other thing I thought about, and just 2 other quick points here. 2 of the sessions I've been to were really interesting. One was on badges with 4-H. If you're not familiar with badges are things you earn after you have acquired and demonstrated a set of knowledge or skills. And that would tie in well with what we're talking about. This is stuff I thought of as you were inspiring me. I was listening to these.
I love to be inspiring.
The other was, anyone in the Google Help Out? It was overwhelmingly full. I could see us using some of these tools, so it's interesting with the part of this. We have a document that we don't show it until later on, but I've just shortened it. It is not open yet, but it will be open shortly with this. If you want to write this down, there's a document where we've been collecting stuff, and if you want to add to it, you can. It's a Google Doc. Here's the URL. It's go.edu/CIT/SCI-NEXC. I'll read that again, but that's basically go.osu.edu/CIT/NEXC. So it's go.osu.edu/CIT/NEXC. Go.osu.edu/CIT/NEXC. So it's Cit Science and the conference. Just when I thought you were playing solitaire on your tablet, you pop up and...
And we can put that on the slide at the end.
And it's right here too.
It's a list of resources around citizen science. The other piece that I didn't mention, I was going to, is, again, the role of our master volunteers. A lot of our master gardeners, our master wildlife, and there's naturalists and lots of other folks out there have a great deal of information, and they can also work with our scientists, faculty in extension in the university. They may also be much better than the actual scientists at negotiating with the kids and the adults in the community because they're used to being more in that outreach role, and they can be very effective in recruiting people to be part of citizen science projects and adding to the power that we can have. So think about that, and we'll be talking more about that as well. And I think Nick is wanting us to be quiet for a minute and have a break. We have a 10-minute break, or we can continue the discussion.
I think we ought to take a 10-minute break because there's other people, new people coming, and they may want to come in. But this is where we're going to start at in 10 minutes with this topic. It's not live yet. I said that at the beginning, was it? That's okay. I'll fix it in about 3 minutes when I can sit back down.
But what we've got there are some of the resources. Last summer, I don't know if you're aware, and I'll just chat and you can get up and take a break if you want to. We were working with the Cornell Ornithology Group, Jennifer Shirk, and we did a webinar, but we wanted to know what 4-H was doing with citizen science. And so they conducted a survey. Some of your 4-H faculty probably received a copy of that, and they were collecting a list of the different citizen science projects that 4-H was using. And it was really quite a nice long list. Some people identified programs that Cornell didn't think were citizen science, and so they didn't include them in the final list that they posted, but there are a lot of projects out there. And there is a little bit of discussion, negotiation, if you will, around the definition of citizen science as to what it involves. A lot of the most common citizen science examples, and you'll hear more about this as we go through the list in the next session, are just sort of data collection pieces. They have youth collect a data point at a particular time when an adult collect, and that's the weather example. You check the temperature or the snowfall or something on a particular date and you submit it. You check when monarch butterflies arrive in your neighborhood or when buds burst, if you will, in your neighborhood, and you just submit that. There are other citizen science projects that really engage the youth and adult throughout the entire scientific process. There are some that require sort of day-to-day involvement. You're out there collecting data from every day or every day that you see something, like when you see a particular bird or something like that. There are other projects, if you've heard of the BioBlitz, which is like a 24-hour collect evidence of every living thing within this particular space of land that are just, so you can set something up that really works for your population. You know, if they want a one-time event, if they want an ongoing event, if they want something that's a more intensive kind of event. Yes?
Do you have any ideas on how to overcome your local extension's reluctance to do
Um,
Part of our problem.
The link is live, and we're still recording.
the link is live.
One of our problems, we're too close to our land grant university, and grad students wrestle each other to be able to get out in the field and do things, so we're pretty much shoved off to the side. I don't know, but it's not programmed enough. They don't feel comfortable with this kind of new projects. We're going to go out and do coding, that stuff.
What I have found most helpful is if you get a youth or someone involved who wants to do something, and either start a new 4-H program to do it, and you be their volunteer or the club leader. Because if you've got kids and you've got an adult willing to do it, often that makes it happen. The same way if you get an adult coming in, particularly if they're one of your master volunteers who really wants to do something, then I think what happens with a lot of our county or local faculty is they have so much on their plate, they don't have time to organize and manage something else. So if you can take away the management tasks and say, I'll get everybody enrolled, I'll do the paperwork, you don't have to do anything but sign here, say that we're an official program. Yeah. That's a very good point. Mm-hmm. If you think about, say, the Christmas bird watch or something, you know, you can often have youth or adults just kind of go out and join that. It wouldn't necessarily be an extension effort, but there are lots of times when they're quite willing to partner with you. It gives them, in some cases, more credibility, more volunteers out there working, and so it's a win-win for both sides. Come on in. Any other questions, comments? Anybody doing citizen science? A couple of us. Yes. So the comment was citizen science is fun because it makes you feel part of these crazy little niche communities who may not be so crazy, but your term. Yes.
What's the difference between
They could both be citizen science. The real key for citizen science is that it involves volunteers working with a scientist. So they shouldn't, for the technical definition, they shouldn't just be collecting data without that interface with the scientist.
I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
data. Some of them are being paid. I get confused. Are they really citizens now, or are they just paid? Can we call that citizen science?
What do you think? Could we call it citizen science if they're being paid? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you're doing a research project, how is it different? I'm trying to.
So a lot of the citizen science projects are through outside organizations. It doesn't, that's not a requirement often, but it is a difference. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's okay. It's probably getting close to time to start the next.
It's already time for the next session.
It's time for the next session. So we will,
Why don't you just keep rolling on through it?
okay.
You can do the.
So any more comments here? Now we want to talk about some, where's Brian?
Oh, he's still recording. He's not here, but it's recording.
Okay, well, is he going to turn Paul on?
I'm on. Do you
Okay,
guys
well,
hear me?
Oh, good.
I was just lurking.
Okay, we wanted to give you some examples of current citizen science projects that are being done in Extension. And Paul from Utah is our first speaker. Paul.
Hey, everybody. It's good to be with you. I am not there because I just had a baby on Friday, so I'm really excited about that. But I'm excited also to talk about citizen science and the project we're doing in Utah. I believe they're going to show you a video in a little bit. But I just wanted to talk about the Utah Water Watch. This is actually, it's done through Utah State University Extension and our water quality department. And so we had an annual conference, and I learned about the Utah Water Watch program, and it's a water quality education and data collection program. And what their goal is, they're seeking to increase the awareness about the importance of water quality and promote the stewardship in Utah's aquatic resources. And so as I was meeting with one of their coordinators, I was looking for a citizen science project to do, and so just hadn't found the right one for me. And so where I live in southern Utah, I live right next to two state parks. And so we chose one to monitor the water there. And so this was last October, and so I hadn't quite gotten it off the ground. But earlier, as you heard, I had a youth who said, "Hey, I want to do a project," and so we hooked up on this project, and it's been really going well. So Utah Water Watch, it's managed actually by the USU Water Quality Extension, but it's also in partnership with the Utah Division of Water Quality. It allows the public. So earlier I heard questions about, like, does it have to be youth or adults? Youth and adults participate in this program. And so they monitor the water in Utah's lakes and streams all throughout this state. Utah Water Watch, it's essentially an extension of past volunteer monitoring efforts in Utah. For about 10 years, students, volunteers, adults, they've monitored water quality throughout successful programs. Like there was one called Utah Lakes Watch, Utah Stream Team, and Utah Streamside Science. And so all these kind of merged together with Extension and in partnership with the Utah Division of Water Quality. And so we're all working on this together. So the mission is to encourage, educate, engage volunteers in monitoring water quality by providing the knowledge and the training and the resources needed to examine the health of Utah's lakes and streams. So the program is dedicated to the collection of credible water quality data for education and watershed management. We have the Extension educators from campus come down, travel throughout the state to train people. They have these water quality kits, and and you'll see in the video kind of about what they do with the kits. And so all these youth, they train me, I train them. We've got another training next month, and they're all learning about. In this video, we don't measure E. coli, but the training is next month on that, so they'll begin monitoring E. coli. But the goals are to recruit, train the volunteers to monitor water quality, really build the STEM skills with youth, observing, measuring, and so forth, and then help volunteers collect the credible water data for the public, schools, and other state agencies. The water quality program in Extension, they provide the water quality education resources for the public, and they maintain a motivated water. It's kind of this clique. We're totally geeking out over this little niche that we have. It's kind of fun to talk over Twitter and other social networks about what we're doing with Utah Water Watch, and then afterwards, and we've even started using what we used to do is we used to collect the data on paper and then go back to the site's UWW, so utahwaterwatch.usu.edu, and then go in and enter it. And so now we have enough Wi-Fi that we can head out to Sand Hollow State Park, and which is beautiful, by the way. You should check it out, and just enter it all via an iPad, and they just upload it, all the data there. It's stored there, and then watershed management and scientists can then use that water. We haven't quite gotten into, what we're, the youth haven't really got into what is done with the data yet. They're still learning how to collect it, and then they'll get more involved in the process of what are we doing with the information as scientists. So that's a little gist about the about Utah Water Watch and what we're doing there. Hope you like the video.
And this video was made by the youth, just so you know.
I'm Cameron Woolsey, and I'm the president of the 4-H Oasis Club. We monitor water quality at Sand Hollow State Park in Washington County, Utah.
Our 4-H Club is part of the Utah Water Watch, a water quality education and data collection program. We work to increase awareness about the importance of water quality and promote stewardship of Utah aquatic resources.
The data we collect is used by Utah State University Extension for education and watershed management. Here's what we monitor every month at Sand Hollow. Water temperature is the measure of how much heat energy the water contains. We're concerned about water becoming too warm for the organisms that live here. Temperature here should not exceed 27 degrees Celsius.
Turbidity is the measurement of water clarity. It's the degree to which light penetration is blocked by suspended solids. We're measuring how deep light can penetrate. pH is the measurement of acidity in the water. We measure the pH on a scale of 0 to 14. We want to protect the pH of lakes and streams because they are the source of many people's drinking water. Most fish and aquatic insects have difficulty surviving outside the healthy range of freshwater pH. Lakes and streams in Utah should be between 6.5 to 9.
Weren't they having fun? And they were really engaged. They had learned a lot about the water, and this was something they do on a monthly basis. So those are some of the pieces about the program itself. Yeah. Yeah, Paul, are you still with us?
This is Paul Hill, over.
Very cool looking project. Just out of curiosity, so the well, I'll plow on, echo a lot. I guess, did your Department of Natural Resources or somebody develop that form for them to fill out, and then the interface for entering the data? Just curious how this project came into existence, because it's one thing to give them, teach them how to measure some data, but then that data has to fit into someone's project. I'm just curious how the project started, if this project existed before and they became data gatherers. Just a little more elaboration on that, please, if you don't mind.
Oh yeah. So as I mentioned before, there were several different agencies doing and programs doing the same thing, and so they all got with Utah State University Extension in their water quality department. And then they formalized kind of one action plan. So they actually, if you saw the girl Kayla, she was writing the information down on those sheets. That was developed by the Water Quality Extension, and so those are field notes about the area. Then there's also the turbidity, pH, the temperature, and all that fun stuff. And they geotag that location, and so they have to go to that same exact location on the pier every single month. At about the same time, usually it's on a Saturday in the morning. And so what they do, then they go to uww.usu.edu to enter that data. So it's all in a database now. That actually came live early this year. So it's actually pretty cool because before, I think we would just scan the paper, send it up to the water quality extension, then they would kind of enter it into a spreadsheet. So now it's better for crowdsourcing, and so a lot easier for the water quality, the citizen scientists going out and collecting data and entering it. So really, USU Water Quality Extension's really built the infrastructure to allow for crowdsourcing. So now even youth can do it, and I would argue that the youth are doing the best job out of anyone in the state with it. So thanks for the question. That was great.
Hey, Paul, we're going to transition over here to Peter. But that's just coming up right now. If you're going to come on up. Good, come on up. While we're transitioning speakers, though, Paul, one of the questions that came up earlier was IRB approval for citizen science. Do you have any idea how that worked in Utah or what you had to go through?
We did lose one kid who did get bitten by an alligator. Just kidding. I heard that earlier. we haven't sent any kids into any dangerous areas. But as far as IRB goes, they aren't collecting any data about themselves. They're just collecting the data from the water quality data and then entering it. So I haven't done anything with IRB yet. That's a great reminder that I should probably look into that. So I'm going to ask for forgiveness at this point.
All right, transition time. I'm Peter Warren. I'm an urban horticulture extension agent in Pima County, Arizona, which is Tucson, where the university is located, about 60 miles north of Mexico. And it's also the location of the USA National Phenology Network. So I've been very fortunate to have this resource locally to work with, but also it's a national resource. And it is a network that its primary goal is to have a standardized data set to use for research. And it started off as pretty much that, and then they started to get citizen scientists involved with it. So the idea is to make phenology data, models, and related information available to anybody who wants to use it, and encourage people of all ages and backgrounds to observe these changes in nature. And the tool that they have that's for everybody to use is called Nature's Notebook. It's a nice application that is available on their website, as well as if you have a smartphone, you can download the app to your phone and use it there. And so it's something that's pretty easy to use. Once you set up a site, which you can do on their website rather easily, you pick a park or a neighborhood or your backyard or wherever you want to use to collect data, and you set up a site and you tag some plants and you decide that those are the ones you're going to monitor. I should mention that they have to be in the database first, which is kind of not a big deal. The database contains currently 943 total species, and you can see wherever there's a green dot, we've got somebody collecting data in the United States, so it's pretty widespread. There are some obvious gaps in the Midwest and maybe the Southeast, so if any of y'all are from there, you could help. But 3,205 observers reporting, and like any kind of volunteer operation, about a third of your volunteers are going to be active and the rest of them are just going to be lurking. And so we have about 10,000 total people who have signed on as volunteers, but a third of them are doing the work. So close to 500,000 observations as of Monday. So that's pretty impressive. And there are, like I said, the number of species in there are pretty wide. And so the things like your monarch butterfly and milkweeds are going to be in there. And there's a lot of regional stuff too, like being in the desert. We've got our fair share of cacti and succulents in there as well. So when people are taking a look at these specimens in their neighborhoods that they're trying to monitor, whether it's an animal or a plant, we have these different phenophases or life stages that we're looking at. And some of them are pretty easy to see, especially on the plants because they're not moving around so much. But if you were interested in insects, for example, and you wanted to follow some bugs around, that's what I do. Then you would go to their plants where these bugs live or feed and look for active numbers and whether they're feeding or multiplying or whatever is going on in their lives, and you can record that sort of information. But in the horticulture aspect of it, we're really looking for things like, are the leaves appearing, the young leaves, or in the case of the fall, are they turning color and falling off? Are there flower buds? Are the flowers open? And maybe you're guesstimating a percentage of flowers that are open at a certain time to gauge how that progresses through the season as well. So here's an example of what it looks like on the data sheet that you would collect it on. You'll have the species at the top and you'll have a nickname. Usually it's some code that they've given it in the database. And oftentimes we'll put a plant tag on a specific plant with that nickname on it so that when people, strangers who are doing this for the first time, come upon the plant, they'll understand which one they're looking at, because you may have 3 or 4 species in an area that are also tagged. So we're looking at the different types of things, leaves, flowers, etc. And you have a chance to say, yes, there are young leaves, no, there are not, or I don't know. Is that a young leaf? I don't know. I've never seen this plant before. So there's an we don't want people to give bad data, so we give them an opportunity to say they're not sure. So what can we use this data for? Well, this is, this whole thing has been designed to measure climate change. So we've got a number of ways to do this, but there's also other aspects of this thing that we can use as well. And the two I'm interested in as an urban horticulture person is the horticulture science and the gardening practices, because I work with master gardeners, and that's an active group of volunteers who are very interested in this sort of thing. Here's an example of the horticulture science where mesquite trees are traditional food for the Indians in the Southwest, and they've been living in the desert without the stuff that we brought in for thousands of years. And one of the things that they feed on are these mesquite trees. They harvest the beans, they grind it into flour, and that's how they make some of their foods. And so with the local food movement, this is all of a sudden very popular to get back to nature and eat fresh, buy local, that kind of stuff. So we've got a lot of gringos trying to make mesquite flour, and what we found out after running them through our very technical lab on the campus of University of Arizona is that about 30% of the samples had aflatoxins, which if you're not familiar with, is a pretty potent carcinogen also found in peanuts. But the peanut industry has worked through this problem, and these guys are just starting to get their hands on it. So this was our research question we're working on now, is what causes the aflatoxins to be in the flower samples, and there are other ways we can mitigate that by harvesting early or not harvesting off the ground, which is kind of a no-no everybody understands anyway. So here's an example. This is from my office. We have a mesquite tree. We put up this net underneath to catch the pods, so that we can take samples every week and start to understand, whether the presence of this aflatoxin is in there on a regular basis. Oops. There's a slide missing, but I'll just say, so the other project, which is really interesting to me because I have 150 Master Gardener volunteers at my disposal, is that we wanted to collect phenology data on the plants in our demonstration gardens at our office. And we have, I dare say, pretty nice demonstration gardens. And so we've tagged a number of the native plants, like the creosote and the ocotillo and the saguaro cactus, and we get these folks to go out there once a week and collect data. And we actually created a segment of our Master Gardener curriculum on phenology so that we can help teach these folks about it as they come into the program and hopefully influence their volunteer activities later. We found that tweaking this curriculum is vital, and we're in the 3rd year of it now. And each year we've gained a few more volunteers who are interested in doing this sort of thing because it is a new thing for the Master Gardeners to be citizen scientists. A lot of them don't really have that experience. So we're working through that right now, and this slide is going to show you the conclusions. Most of the Master Gardeners appreciate the opportunity. We've had a lot of people remark about how they've never taken such a close look at plants for over a period of time before, and how that's really changed their perspective on these things. And but most of them are just not data collectors, and that's really appeals to a certain type of person. And so we are trying to cultivate that in our crop of volunteers that we graduate each year. So we have about a 20% rate of achieving that success. So we've got a number of future plans where we're going to help try and implement this. We've got several sites in Tucson we call the Tucson Phenology Trail. And so it's a rather successful program in that we've got neighborhood associations, people on campus, and our master gardeners involved with this. And so we're hoping to grow it on as time moves. Oops. This is who's over next.
I'm next. Any questions for Paul?
Or Peter?
Yes. Would you take her the
Yes.
microphone?
How do you get species added to the list?
She wants to know, how do you get species added to the list? Well, if it's a common species in your area, it may already be on the list. If it's not, then you have to lobby the person or the committee that puts them on the list. And I know them personally, so I can say that they are friendly people, and they will be glad to help you as long as you have a good justification for that. So.
I'm trying to get our master naturalist group in there, all the desert where we're at.
Oh, okay. So she's asking about the Chihuahuan Desert where there's a gap. And so they're looking for species from that area to be added to the list. And having not been in that conversation, I better not say anything that Lorianne may have said different about. But I'll certainly pass that on, and we can talk after and make sure that message gets delivered. Anybody else?
Thank you. That was an example of a great tool. But from the examples we've given you so far, you might think that citizen science means environmental projects like water quality and phenology. A lot of them are, but that's not necessarily true. So I wanted to just highlight two more examples. This is a list. I told you there was a 4-H survey last summer to what citizen science projects are currently adopted into 4-H. The first one on the list is the Adopt a Pixel project. I don't know if you're familiar with that. That's a collaboration that 4-H has with NASA. You know, the satellites up in the sky, they take photographs. And what they ask 4-H groups to do is adopt a pixel on the land. They give you the satellite data, and that you go and ground truth. You go to your pixel, and you see what's actually there, and see if it's the same thing that NASA says is there. Because, sometimes it's a little difficult to figure out from way up there what's really down here. And you can adopt as many pixels as you want to, and of course they take photos all over the United States, so anyone can do it. And it's a nice sort of one-time example. Yes, sir?
So when they go and look at what's really there, do they send back photos?
Yeah, they send back, particularly if it's like buildings and trees and things like, yes, they do take photos of it. They send back some data. They go out with their GPS and mark it to make sure they get the exact spot of interest. There's a form that they send back. Sure. And there's a URL, and this particular document is on the site that Jerry told you to go to. So if you're trying to take a photograph of it and it's kind of blurry, you can get it online. Another one I wanted to just mention is the Food Deserts Project. There's been a lot of discussion in Extension about childhood obesity and the availability of fresh foods in certain areas. And again, this is another GIS, geospatial kind of activity where basically, and mostly it's been youth, but they've had a lot of community adult participants as well as volunteers going out, walking every block, seeing what's available in the markets and, indicating where you can get fresh fruits and vegetables and just processed food and how many pizza shops, et cetera, and McDonald's are on your block. So it's an example of another way that you could do a mapping project of your community to figure out what resources, what assets are available or not available to meet the needs of your community. And there's a lot of other examples out there as well. But I didn't want to leave you with the impression that everything is environment, because you can design a citizen science project to meet the interests of the adults and youth that you're working with. And I think technically it's time for a break between our 20-minute sessions, but we'll still be here, so if you're interested in talking about more of the projects or anything like that, and Jerry said the list of resources is online, and then our next session will be, everybody's leaving, a chance for you to talk about how you could really use citizen science in your community.
And if you can keep the break